Dikduk U'Masoret HaMikra, Parashat Ki Tisha 1. In the reading for the Ta'anit, and in the middle of the parasha, Perek Lamed Bet, Pesukim Yud Aleph Yud Bet. They start as follows. V'hal Moshe b'nei Adonai Elohav v'yomer Lama Adonai yechireh apecha b'amecha asher hotzetam eretz Mitzrayim bekoach gadol uvyad hazaka. And then Pasuk Yud Bet, Lama yomeru Mitzrayim lemor bera'ah hotziam, etc. So the question is always asked by Baalei Kriya and everybody else, why the first Lama is Lama with Milera. It's on the emphasis is on the second syllable, and the next one, Lama yomeru Mitzrayim, on the first syllable. The emphasis is on the first syllable. There is no difference in the meaning of those two words. It means the same thing. Why? Why? Why are you HaKadosh Baruch Hu upset? How could you be upset this way? And it's either why or how, but it's the same meaning. In the Minhat Shai, he has a treatise at the end. It's found sometimes at the end of Mikal Gedolot. It's called Darkei HaNikud VeHaNeginot. He emphasizes there a certain point. He says that there are 5 words in the Torah where there's a dagesh that shouldn't belong there. And these words are as follows. He enumerates them. Lama, Batim, Anna, Yama, and Shama. In each case, there's a kamatz under the first letter, and under the second letter, there's a dagesh. Now, normally, that never will happen. Usually, if you have a kamatz, which is tenra gedola, there's no dagesh afterwards. And he writes, he doesn't know exactly why, but he tries to explain things in his own way. He thinks the reason why, when there's a dagesh after the kamatz on those words, those 5 words, there's a metek or ma'arich, and usually right after the first letter, but excuse me, not a metek, but there's the ta'am, the emphasis on that particular letter, on the first letter, is because it is separated from the dagesh afterwards. Le'afrid, he says, Kedei la'afrid ben hakamatz ve'adagesh. That's why the emphasis, the negina, was placed on the first syllable, in order to separate the first syllable from the second syllable. So instead of lama, it said lama, yama, shama, anna. But he says, but the reason for the other case where you have the emphasis on the second syllable, like lama adoshem, is because certain letters, he calls them otiyot garon. It turns out it's not exactly that, but the 3 letters that he mentions, aleph, het, ayin, when the second word after the word lama or lama is an aleph or het or an ayin, and he calls them otiyot garon, the emphasis on the word lama changes to lama, and it goes from mile'el to milera. The emphasis goes from the first syllable to the last syllable. Why? In order that the first syllable, the first letter on the next word, which is either an aleph, het, ayin, is not swallowed up in the process of pronouncing both words. So if you say lama adoshem, it's very possible that the first letter a from adoshem could be swallowed up with the mem, the ma from lama. So therefore, it's switched to melera, the emphasis on the last syllable. Lama, there's a pause, adoshem. Lama adoshem. And that's why they're separated. So it's a process of ensuring that every letter in the Torah is pronounced and heard properly. Now, it turns out that even, we said this once before, that even when there's a hey in the next word, after kamatz hey on the first word, and then a hey in the next word, it also switches from mil'el to milera. Example, and the Rashbam brings this down, it's not quoted by the Minhat Shai, but the Rashbam brings this down in Shemot, in Shemot, and it is the perek is, let's see, Hey, Shemot Heg Pasuk Kafbet. On the pasuk, Lama hareota la'am hazeh, lam hazeh shelachtani. You have the same structure, Lama and Lama. But it's not Aleph Hed, it's a He. That is the beginning of the second word, Lama hareota. And we mentioned this once before. So in order to separate those two very similar sounding syllables, we say instead of Lama hareota, where you might lose the He of the second word, you say Lama hareota. That's the neginot, the ta'amim, now become melera. Lama hareota, but Lama zeh shelachtani. Lama zeh, it's not one of the letters, Aleph, He, Het, Ayin, and the He should be included, that it goes back to being Mil'el Lama. We know that in addition, there are other similar words in Bamidbar, Yud Aleph, Lamed He, Lamed Vav, the Negina on the words Shuva and Kuma are both Melera, even though essentially they should be Mil'el. So there it says, Vahi ben Aharon, Vayome Moshe, Kuma Adoshem. Same thing, that you don't lose the first syllable of the second word, Adoshem, Kuma A. There's a pause, and then Kuma Adoshem, and then similarly, Shuva Adoshem. And on the other hand, in Tifulat, before Tifulat Musaf, we know this for sure when we read, the Sfaradim read a certain number of Pesukim. Shuva Limonach. It's Shuva Limonach. When there's no He, the word really is Shuva. But Shuva Hashem, Rivevot Alfei Yisrael, Uvnurcho Yoma, Shuva Hashem, when you have a He, and after a Kamatz He in the first word, and a He in the second word, or Aleph, in this case, Adoshem from Aleph, it becomes Melera. In the case of Shuva Limonach, there's no such situation, it's pronounced Mela'el.